I got started because I had a PR problem. I was CEO of Lawson Software, and we were going public, and I was a convicted felon. So I had a PR problem. I didn't get into the speaking business because I wanted to be a speaker. I got in because I had an issue. When you're taking a company public, you really don't have the ability to hide or just put something, underneath the blankets or behind the wall. I mean, it was out there live and in color. So I had a PR problem. So I started to speak, and I spoke because I had this issue, and I was a convicted felon, and it was something that I had to really deal with. So for me, I started to speak. And I started to speak because I was trying to get in front of this PR issue. And what happened is, I hit a chord with people. I hit a chord. They emotionally connected to my story. It was a story of perseverance. It was a story of hope. It was a story of faith. And they connected to it. And so for me, I just started to tell it more often. I told it to large groups where there'd be more than 1,000 people, or I told it to small groups where there'd be 20. And I just got this feedback of people saying, there's a connection here with what you went through, and I want to know about it. And it was something that was powerful. It was therapeutic. It was exciting. And that's what really just got me into the speaking business. But the interesting thing is I was connecting to their hearts. And after a while, they were coming up to me and they wanted more. They were saying, they were really asking, they're saying, great story, exciting, but how did you really do it? I mean, how did you really accomplish it? And so for me, I realized that I was connecting to their hearts, but they really wanted me to also connect to their heads. They wanted to think about it. And the reality was these people were struggling with things. They had issues and challenges in their lives. And they wanted to know, hey, you did it. How could I take something so that I could apply it and maybe I could use it? And so for me, after years and years and years, I started to listen, and I had to go back, and I had to really think through and examine, what did I do? How did I do it? And certain themes started to appear. And these themes, over and over again, were the things that I put together that said, hey, these are the choices that I made in life. These are the choices that allowed me to not be defined by my worst moment. These are the choices that allowed me to be defined by who I wanted to be. And they're the choices that I'll talk to you about. And so when I get on the stage and I talk to people, they think I'm talking right to them. And what they walk away with is the ability to say, hey, I don't want to be stuck in the circumstances that I'm in. I want the opportunity to do something different. I want to be something different. I want to appreciate life more. And that's what I give people. And that's what I talk about. And that's been rewarding. For me, there's two different groups of people that come to my events. There's people that are your type A, classic, motivated, driven people, and they want to accomplish more in life, but they also want to achieve balance because they feel like they're out of balance and they're missing something. And the other group of people that come are people who are being challenged in life. They're stuck. Their circumstances are starting to impact them. And for them, they're trying to achieve more in life, but they're just trying to figure out how to do it. And so what I try to do is I try to say, hey, not only do I have an exciting story to grab your attention, but the really important part is, hey, you can walk out of here with these 5 choices. And as you start to apply these 5 choices to your life, you'll start to appreciate life more. Because life's a marathon, life's not a sprint. And most of the people I see are either sprinting or stuck. And for me, my goal is to say, how do I get you out of the stuck part of your life? And if you're sprinting, how do I get you to enjoy life? And that's what these 5 choices will allow you to do. I think most people I talk to after they start to apply what I'm talking about is they're more focused, they have more energy, they're achieving more, their relationships get better, and they're more in balance. And the reason balance becomes so important is because life's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And if you're sprinting, I guarantee you're going to burn out before you get to the end. So for me, what you're really getting out of my 5 choices is you're going to start to appreciate life more than you currently do. Most of the people who actually start following these choices, my real goal is how do I make you a better leader at work? But the real reality is how do I make you a better leader at home And how do I make you a better leader in your community? Because for me, a more well-balanced person becomes a better leader at work because you're a better leader at home and you're a better leader in your community. Put all three of those together, you become a better leader at all three. My audience really has to do with any organization that's growing, whether it's a for-profit or a non-for-profit. Because anytime, and that's really who I am, I'm a growth guy. Most of my business career has been about growth. So you can imagine when you're in a growing organization, it's fun, but it's also frustrating. It's exciting, but stressful. It's chaotic and there's a lot of change, but it's also a lot of opportunity for career advancement. So you throw all that into a big mix. Most growing organizations, people are challenged by them. And what I provide is, if you look at the 5 choices I talk about, clarity, how do I provide motivation, how do I give you the confidence, how do you stay in balance, and how do you learn to adapt? All those things can be applied to you when you're in any kind of growing organizations, because for me, growing organizations is where all the opportunity comes from. And everybody wants to be a part of a growing organization. It doesn't mean it isn't without its issues, but how do you take advantage of what you want to do or how you want to be defined in an organization that's growing? My audience is really made up of people who are trying to accomplish more in life, or people who want to be characterized by something else. Usually they're in the business community or in the nonprofit community, but it's any man or woman who's looking to achieve more while remaining in balance. Because everybody comes up to me and talks to me, hey, I'm doing all these things in life, or how come I'm not getting more out of life? You're all challenged with being in balance as you go through life. You know, what audiences tell me they're walking away with is, one, they're emotionally charged. I have a story that's going to grab your attention. But just as important, they're walking away with some real to-dos, some real actionable items that can change who they are. And when you start to change who you are, you start to believe it, it comes across in multiple ways. You got more energy, you're more motivated, you're more focused. Quite frankly, you're going to be in a better frame of mind, in whether you're dealing with people at work or in your community or more importantly, when you're at home. So for me, I want somebody coming out of there to be a better, well-rounded person. They're going to be excited, they're going to have fun, they're going to be emotionally charged, but most importantly, they're going to come away with some very key things that can change their lives going forward. People connect to me emotionally because you can't go through my kind of story without being connected. I mean, you would have to be dead to not get emotionally charged in one of my speeches, because you can't listen to somebody talk about losing their father without somehow getting an emotional connection. And for me, my vulnerability is I'm telling you exactly what happened. And it was a big issue. I mean, it was a tragedy. So when you're hearing my story, if you can't get emotionally charged by this, or at least impacted some way, shape, or form, I just don't think you're breathing. Well, first off, when you're going through this kind of story, there'll be times, every time I give this presentation, there's times where I can hear a pin drop in the room. I mean, it's just, I've got everybody's attention. It's just because that's what the story is all about. And from there, I got to sort of bring the audience out. And there's multiple ways to do it. One of the ways is humor. One of the ways is fun. One of the ways is to get the participants engaged with me. So I got to bring them up after they've been really pulled into this story. And then once they go there, then it's how do I start working on their minds? Because, you know, the story's cool. I want you to leaving remembering this story, but I really want to have an impact on your life. And that's where I start to change it into the 5 choices. And we start to talk about you. It's not just about me. We start to talk about you and what it means for you. And so for me, anybody coming to one of my speeches, they're going to be emotionally charged, but I want them walking out of there thinking that they're going to become, and the actionable items of how they become a different person. I'm out coaching a lot of people. One of the reasons I speak is because this message that I have, I can't give one-on-one to everybody. And what speaking does is allows me to have an influence on a lot bigger group of people. I make sure that if I'm speaking, one of my goals, and one of the things that I love to hear afterwards, is people think that I'm talking right to them. It's like I'm talking one-on-one right to you. And the reason I can do that is because I'm using stories that are real from not only my experience, but from the people that I coach. And when I'm out coaching people, they're dealing with the same issues that you're dealing with and that anybody that's in the audience is dealing with. So it's really through stories that allow me to connect to the audience. And it's those stories that give people hope. It's those stories that give people the motivation to say, hey, if he can do it, and these other people that I'm hearing about can do it, I can do it. You know, for me, one of the reasons I do all this is I think I'm amazed at how this world today is hard. It's tough, but people make it harder and tougher than it really has to be. And for me, I'm always amazed with just a little bit of guidance and a little bit of encouragement that people can change their environment. I mean, they can change who they are and change what they do for the better. And so every day for them becomes a better day than the day they just had. And for me, that's life-giving, that's energy-giving. I can do that all day long. And I do it one-on-one, or I do it through speaking, where I was one-to-many, and hopefully eventually doing it through a book, and I'll be able to influence people that I might never meet. But the goal really, through this influence, is to make people's lives better. I think people can change. I think it's just a matter of showing them how. And once you start showing them how, then people just embrace it and run with it. It's fun to watch. You see somebody change their lives, change for the better, change their families, change their environments that they're in. That's powerful, and that's why I do it. I'm an example of how you can change. I mean, it's pretty rare to go from somebody who's a convicted felon to somebody who becomes a CEO. So I'm proof that you can change. The issue is you can't just, sit on the sidelines. You can't just procrastinate. You can't just, complain about life. You got to embrace life. You got to be able to attack it. You got to be able to say, let's go out and make something happen. The issue is how. Well, let me show you with these 5 choices. You got to have clarity in life. You got to be motivated with some accountability. You got to be able to adapt. You got to have confidence. You got to have balance. Those are the 5 choices. And once I start to share those choices with you, you realize that it's not something that you can't do. It's not something you can say, hey, Jay, you did it, but I can't do it. No, it's pretty simple. The reality is you just got to follow it and follow through. And when you do, you actually have the ability to define who you want to become. That's powerful. I have multiple keynotes. For me, the one keynote is basically just an address where I talk about my accident and what happened, and there's a story of perseverance and hope. There's another one where I bring in these 5 key questions, these 5 key choices that you can use and what you can walk away with. So I have multiple ways to do it. I customize my presentations. For me, I grew up in sales and marketing, selling big ticket items, technology. So I grew up understanding what's the customer really want. I mean, it's in my DNA. I just did a commencement speech for the last 15 minutes of my speech. I customized it to what they wanted. Feedback I got was great. I'm meeting somebody tomorrow morning, 3 people tomorrow morning. My whole goal is to find out what they want out of the presentation. Specifically, what they want in their organization out of the presentation, not what do I, here's my normal speech, but what do you want? So my norm is to customize because it's who I am and it's in my DNA. My exception would be to do just a generic speech. That would be pretty rare. Any way for me to customize my speech would be a combination of me doing some research on you, but more importantly, I just need to know what you want to accomplish. What's your themes of your conference? What's the goals of the organization? Where are they going? What's the strategy? Is it changing, or anytime people are usually trying to grow, they're trying to motivate their people. So anything I can do to take my presentation and incorporate all your themes, all your strategies, all your goals, that's what I'm looking to do. That's what I'm looking to either talk to you about ahead of time, figure out, but more than likely I'm going to incorporate some version of what you want to accomplish into my presentation. Why? Well, because quite frankly, it's in my DNA and I get bored if I don't do it. So I'm more interested in doing it. It makes me more excited. It makes my learning more valuable, and it makes the conference that much better. When people are leaving, they're going to be emotionally charged. They're going to go on a roller coaster ride of highs and lows. They're going to have some to-dos that they're going to be thinking about, and they're going to have it customized to the specifics of your event. So I'm excited that participants in any of these conferences that I'm going to be speaking at are going to have all that. The energy, the focus, and the specific message that you want them to hear. I like watching other speakers. How I'm different? Well, one, I don't know anybody that's a convict that became a CEO, whether they're in the speaking circuit or just in general. There's a lot of CEOs who have become convicts. That's a different story. But for me, I have a unique story, and that's the part that energizes it. How I'm different from there is not only do I got you connected with your emotions and your heart, but now I'm connecting your mind. And before you leave, I want you saying, this is what I can do differently in life. This is how I can get more out of life. And I don't know of any speakers that provide both. A unique story that energizes you, as well as the list of things that you can do to make your life better. That's unique, and that's what I'm bringing to the table. Whether other people can do that or not, I'm not sure, but I haven't seen it yet. I went through this life-changing experience, and then I was heads down just trying to make my career happen. How was I going to become a CEO? And I wasn't really thinking about what I was going to do or how I was going to teach other people. It wasn't until later in life that I started to speak, then people were asking me, hey Jay, how did you do it? That I went back and said, these are the tools, or these are the choices that I actually made. And then it was like, okay, well, how do I start teaching you those tools? Because it wasn't anything that I don't think anybody couldn't have done. They just either aren't aware, or they're not motivated, or they're not being held accountable to do it. So for me, I created these choices that I didn't create them, I just started to do them, but now I teach them. And in that teaching you how you could do it, that's my uniqueness. This message of perseverance, of hope and faith plays both in the faith marketplace and in the business community. The reality is you're going to work hard. You know, all of us are going to work hard if you want any success out of life, or do you want to accomplish anything in life. But the combination that I provide is to say, when you bring the same elements that you would need in a faith story to a secular story, the reality is these 5 choices I'm talking about, they're the same. You're going to need them in either scenario. I'd love to tell you that, you know, this thing's all about faith, and I can't tell you how many guys would come to me and I'd say, it's just about faith, and they'd say, Jay, I prayed this morning, what else? And that's the other reason I had to create the 5 choices, because I had to say, yeah, in addition to just faith, what did I do? What were the actionable items that I had to do in addition to my faith? And that's where I started to create these 5 choices. They are associated with having clarity. They're associated with being motivated through accountability, adapting in life, having confidence in life, and being in balance. And you can do that whether you're in a faith-based community or not, to achieve more in life and to get more appreciation out of life, faith-based or not. No, my faith came in after my accident, you know, and so I have this is a story, it's a faith journey. It was interesting that's how I started speaking, mainly was to faith-based groups. And you know, the conversion I had in the hospital to become a Christian was very impactful for me. But I still had to go back to work. I still had to go back into the world. I still had to go to jail. It wasn't like I became a Christian and everything just got better. It did get better for me from my spiritual side, but I still had all the challenges of life. And I still took those challenges, and then I went on to have some success. And that's what people want to know about. They want to know, hey, how did you go about doing it? And then more importantly, can I take what you did and apply it to my life? And that's what I see most people wanting to hear. They want to say, hey, I'm really glad you did it, Jay, but I'm really more interested in how I might be able to do it. My audience really it falls into really 2 categories. It's people who really want to accomplish more while achieving balance in life. Big deal. Because usually it's all about, you know, just being driven. And I'm saying, well, yeah, you're going to be driven. I want you to achieve a lot. But how do you do it, but as well as provide balance in your life? Why does that matter? Because you're in a marathon, not a sprint. And most people are sprinting every day and they're not going to make it. So the reality is you're going to work hard. But the real reality is, how do I get you in balance, which provides the energy, the motivation, and the confidence to achieve over the course of your lifetime. And when you do that, I'm also challenging to say it's not just about achieving at work. It's how do I help you accomplish more at home and accomplish more in your community? And if I can get you to do all three, that's where the appreciation of life starts to come in. It's been fun for me to get done a presentation and receive a standing ovation, but I have to say that I'm usually pretty emotionally drained. This is a story that's personal, it's real, it's authentic. I love hearing people's feedback, but I would say most of the time I'm pretty emotionally drained by the time I'm coming off that stage, because the story might be unique to everybody in the audience, but to me it's real. So I love getting the feedback for the effort that I'm putting out, but the real reality is I'm usually emotionally drained as well by the time I'm done. I'm pretty sure the audience is as well, and that's what makes it cool and exciting and fun. The feedback I get when I come off the stage, is amazing. You get a lot of hey, great speech and all that kind of stuff, which is fulfilling and nice. But I can't tell you how many people open up to me about what's going on in their lives. Pretty raw emotional things, especially for that kind of setting. For me, it's how I knew I was connecting is when I would say mainly men would come up to me sharing some of their things that are going on in their lives, and I think they do it because they don't think I'll judge them. Because the reality is I just explained how much of an idiot I was and all the challenges I went through. And they think, well, maybe they have nowhere else to go, but I've just connected so much that they come up and they start telling me some of their real challenges in life. And I try to get their name and number, and I'll talk to them later, because usually they're in the line with 30 other people, and I don't have time to solve that problem in the next 30 seconds. But that happens a lot, where people will come up to me and be really, really open because I've just been open and vulnerable as well. Well, for me, my real thing is to try to get them connected. If there's a faith element to it, I want to get them connected to whatever church they might be in. But mostly I want them to start saying, what are you going to do about it? Stop being stuck in your circumstances and start taking control and defining who you want to be. To me, you got a choice. You either just continue to be stuck and let the circumstances define who you are, or you take it under control, start applying these 5 choices that I talk about, and start defining who you want to be. And when you do that, you'll be more courageous, you'll learn to be more bold, you'll have more energy, you'll have more focus, you'll get more balance in life, and ultimately you'll start to appreciate life more. I got started in the business because I had a PR problem. I was CEO of Lawson, and we were going public, and I was a convicted felon. And I had to get in front of that. So all of a sudden I was like, it wasn't something you were going to hide. It wasn't something you were going to just ignore. It was big. It was out there, and I had to get in front of it. So the reality for me is I had a PR problem, and I had to figure out what to do with it. So I got in front of it, and I started to speak. And for me, started to speak, and all of a sudden, let me start again.
That's all right. No, that's good.
You got it?
Yeah.
But you see where I think I'll answer it, and if I can get in dialogue.
Stop like that. If you need help, I can, follow up to what you're saying.
Okay. I'd rather get into dialogue with you, right? So.
Yeah. We want it to be conversational. Okay, so you're saying you had a PR problem because of your past.
Right.
So what kind of things did you brainstorm to figure that out?
Well, I started speaking because of this PR problem. The reality for me was, after I started to speak, people really got connected. People really got connected to my story. It became very emotional. I don't know why, but they did. I think it was because I showed my vulnerability. I was transparent. But for me, the emotional connection was I wasn't ready for it. So this emotional connection, after I spoke, I came off the stage, people were really touched. And so for me, it was like, I just kept giving speeches. I kept doing it more and more. I gave it to large groups, where there'd be 1,000 people, or I gave it to groups of 20. So the reality was, it was therapeutic for me to go through what happened, as well as just trying to get in front of this PR issue. So for me, I just started to give it, and what happened is, over time, is people wanted more. You know, it was like the emotional part, I was connecting to their heart, but they wanted more. They'd come up to me afterwards and say, "Hey Jay, you know, how did you really do it? You know, how did you have this success?" And so for me, I had to start to think about it. In the last couple of years, I realized that even though I was connecting to their hearts, they're really asking me, you know, to also connect to their minds. They wanted to think about it. They wanted to say, "Jay, you know, not only do I want to know because it's a cool story, I want to know how you do it because I got my own issues. I got my own obstacles. I got my own challenges." And so I started to think through and say, well, how did I do it? How did I accomplish this? How did I go from a convict to a CEO and then maintain that CEO status? And for me, I started to say, the realities were I did not want to be defined by my worst moments. I wanted to be defined by who I become. And it was more than just my career. It was more than just who I was as a CEO. It was about my beliefs. It was about my values, the actions I was taking. It was about my relationships. All those things were in who I was being defined as. But the reality was I had to find and say, who was I becoming? So people would come up to me after I was done speaking, and they were very, very emotional. So I know I was touching them with my story, but they wanted more. They were like, "You got me with my heart, I'm all in, but I also want to know how I can apply this to myself. I also have my own challenges in life. I have my own obstacles to get over." So they were really asking me, "Hey, love your story, but want more." So for me, it was like, "Hey, I have your hearts. I got your connection. Now you want to know, how am I going to get your mind? How are you going to walk away and help that person get changed, overcome their obstacles, deal with their challenges?" So I had to think through. So I started to think through, what is it that I did? And certain themes started to come out. And it was these themes that were over and over again of what did I do that maybe other people didn't do, that did allow me to get through this. And those themes became the choices that I made in life. And they became the 5 choices that I talk about when I give presentations. They're the 5 choices that I'm writing about. And these 5 choices were the things that really allowed me to not be defined by my worst moment. They allowed me to define myself. And so for you, what I'm hoping is if you listen to me and you listen to me dialogue, or you listen to me on a stage, you take these 5 choices and it allows you to define who you want to be in life. You know, the 5 choices, they're not rocket scientist stuff. They're not new. They're things like clarity and accountability. But these 5 choices will definitely allow you to identify who you are and what you want to do in life. And most of the people that come to me, most of the people that want to hear me speak, they fall into 2 camps. Either they're somebody that wants to accomplish more while, you know, regaining balance in their life, or they're somebody who's stuck. And it's circumstances that have been put in their way, or obstacles that put in their way. But both these groups, they want a better appreciation of life. They want more out of life. And when you listen to me and you adapt these 5 choices that I talk about, you'll accomplish more and you'll appreciate life more. The 5 choices that you have in life, one of them is clarity. And I find that most people can't even answer a simple question like, what do you want to do in life? Or what do you want to be? We have a tendency to ask this question of people like my kids who are in college. Like, as a 20-year-old, you're supposed to know what you're going to do with the rest of your life. For me, it's a question that I've learned that you need to embrace for the rest of your life. Whether you're in your 20s or you're in your 50s, the issue is the same. What do you want to do? Having that clarity is so important to almost everything you want to do in order to achieve stuff. John Wooden, the famous coach from UCLA, said, "Never confuse activity with achievement." Well, if you don't have focus, or you don't have goals, or you don't have clarity, then everything becomes important and nothing becomes important. And you get busy. And what I find is that most people struggle with the busyness of life.